It is not all greenish poo that is caused by a disease or an infectious agent. So let us categorize it into two. Greenish poo caused by an infectious agent and greenish poo caused by a non-infectious agent. For the infectious agent, we have Newcastle disease, which is a viral disease. We have avian influenza, which is also a viral disease. And we also have fowl typhoid, which is a bacterial disease. One thing is common with a greenish poo caused by an infectious agent. The poo will be greenish and watery and it will be shining. Then when you look at the birds will appear dull. They will be showing signs of illness. You will know that these birds are sick. You will see cough, like in Newcastle disease, you're going to see cough. You're going to see other signs of illness, that are pointing towards, a disease condition. Now let us look at greenish poo caused by a non-infectious agent. The food that we give these birds contain carbohydrates, which is a giant molecule that needs to be broken down to release glucose, and it is this glucose that will give the birds energy so that the birds will not be weak. Okay, it also contains protein, which is also a giant molecule that needs to be broken down into its last product of digestion, which is amino acid, and it is this amino acid that is responsible for the growth of the birds. That is why the more the protein content, the crude protein content, the faster the birds will grow. Okay. Now it is this amino acid that needs to be absorbed, and it is responsible for growth. Then it also contains fats. This fats also needs to be digested further so that it will release its final product of digestion, which is fatty acid and glycerol. Now, what is responsible for the digestion of fat is the bile that is produced by the liver. So when birds eat, the fat in that feed that they eat needs to be digested. And it is the bile that is responsible for the digestion of that fat, right? So the bile will be released to digest the fat. So because the bird is eating well, okay, the bile will mix up with the feeds. And once the bird pass out feces or pass out poo, you're not going to see a greenish poo because there is enough food that mixes up with the bile, right? So anything that will make the birds not to be eating will lead to a greenish poo because bile, despite the fact that the birds are not eating, bile will be released, and because there is not enough food to mix properly with the bile, which is greenish in color, the poo or the feces will take the color of the bile. All right. Now somebody will be asking, the birds are not eating, so why will bile be released to digest feed? There's something we call gluconeogenesis. This gluconeogenesis is a biochemical process whereby the fat deposits in the body of the birds are mobilized and used to produce glucose or energy for the birds. Now let us picture it this way. Because the birds are not eating, all right, the birds will not have energy. And that energy is coming from glucose. And glucose is the end product of carbohydrate digestion. So the birds are not eating, they don't have glucose, they don't have energy, they will be weak, they will not be able to stand and walk about and do all the activities, right? Now the body doesn't want the birds to be weak. The body has a way of, mobilizing fats and use fats to produce glucose and give the birds energy. So that process whereby fats are used to produce glucose so that the birds will now have energy to move about is known as gluconeogenesis. So the body has a way of, sourcing for fats in different areas of the body, right? Okay, let's take for instance, there is more fat on the lap. So the body will just go mobilize those fats on the lap, all right, and bring those fats from the lap to the intestine. Are you getting it? So you just mobilize the fat from the lap, they will not come to the intestine. So once the fat is in the intestine, the bile will be released because the bile is responsible for the digestion of fat, right? So it will now digest that fat that is found in the intestine, right? So once it digests it, once the bird pass out feces or pass out poo, the poo will be greenish in color because the fat is just fat. So there is not enough foods to mix up with the bile content, which is greenish in color. So once the birds pass out feces, the feces will be, will be green to take the color of the bile, right? So now let us look at conditions that will make a bird not to be eating well. Okay, once birds are stressed, they don't seem to eat, and examples of stress are heat stress. Once there is heat stress, the birds don't eat much, so there will be mobilization of fat, from fat deposits. All right. Now transportation stress, handling stress, vaccination stress, poor ventilation is also a stress. Overcrowding is a stress. So in these stress conditions, it will make the birds not to be eating. And once the birds pass out feces, the feces will be greenish in color. So and you'll be saying, my birds are passing out greenish poo. And in these stress conditions, all right, the greenish poo will be dry. It will not be watery, it will be dry and it will not be shining. And you will see the birds will be active. So that is how you can differentiate greenish poo that is caused by an infectious agent from the greenish poo that is caused by a non-infectious agent such as stress, right? So for the infectious agents, the greenish poo will be watery and shining, and the birds will be dull. They will be showing some signs of illness. But for the non-infectious agents such as stress conditions, the greenish poo will be dry and it will not be shining, and the birds will be active.